While anxiety symptoms are largely the same across genders, I would argue that men experience anxiety quite differently than women, and with that, they go about treatment differently as well. Part of this argument is coming from my own personal experience with anxiety. I've struggled with it my whole adult life, and I'm going to be talking about that more as this video goes on. My name is Paul James. I am the founder of Bedlamite. We are a male mental wellness platform where we advocate for all natural and holistic remedies. If that's something of interest to you, I welcome you to subscribe to this YouTube channel. And more so, we have a lot of information on our website where we're going to a lot of depth and discussion on these topics. So again, if that interests you, I invite you to check that out. So a statistical fact is men are less likely to voice concerns about their mental health as much as women are. And in fact, because of this, the statistic currently stands that women are twice as likely to have anxiety than men. Now, how accurate this statistic is, we don't know, because men aren't going out there and getting themselves diagnosed. Instead, we almost choose to struggle silently. And it's been argued that the reason we do that is because of societal pressures of what traditional masculinity should look like. However, I'm going to make the argument that this desire of ours to struggle silently has less to do with society and more to just do with man's nature. As men, we almost feel this innate need to figure things out for ourselves. I mean, think about when you think of what a reliable man looks like, what do you think? And it's likely you think of a man who can solve problems, a man who can get things done, a man who's proactive in a healthy manner. When we struggle with mental health, we also are struggling with the fact that we've almost lost control of something, and something very important to us. And as a result, it makes it more difficult for us to be the man that, again, we innately desire to be. This is something that's just at the core of who we are as men. And I think this is why men largely don't speak up when it comes to their mental health, because we see it as a problem we need to find a solution to. We see it as a problem that we need to solve. Like I mentioned before, a lot of what I'm saying is coming from personal experience. When I've struggled with anxiety, it felt like it was a me problem. It felt like it was something I had to solve. It wasn't anybody else's fault that I was dealing with this. It wasn't necessarily my fault either, but it felt like it was my duty to treat it. And I remember too, when I look back on when my anxiety's been at its absolute worst, I just remember like looking in the mirror thinking I was just insane and that I had lost my mind, and yeah. But it's interesting, with enough time and enough understanding of how human psychology works, how my own psychology works, I began to put the pieces together, and I began to be able to ease my anxiety. It's still here, I still live with it, but it's definitely at a point now where it's much more manageable, and I don't feel as inhibited by it. So with these things said, I'm sure part of the reason you might be watching this now is to kind of figure out your own anxiety. Maybe you're a man who struggles with it and you feel like less of a man because of it. I certainly did at times. I certainly felt like I was weaker than other men. It is solvable. It is something you can solve. Anxiety is one of those mental illnesses where there is something that can help you. And that's part of my goal with this video, is to try to point you in that direction. So as I've said in previous videos, and as I'll continue to say, one of the most important things men need to do in order to solve an issue like anxiety is look into the cause of it. Now, there are a few different factors you need to look into. One is you very likely have an overactive nervous system, and what causes an overactive nervous system is just poor upbringing is the best way to put it. Maybe you lived in an environment that was very hostile, and now you just feel like the entire world around you is extremely hostile. As a result of that childhood fear, your amygdala is just overactive. It's constantly on alert. It's constantly seeking out threats, and you just find yourself in this position. However, there could be environmental factors that are happening right now, real time, and in our modern society, I'm not surprised if tons of men are struggling with anxiety because the ability to live is just becoming harder and harder. Let's think back to the reliable man example that I brought up. When you think of a reliable man, you likely think of a man who can also provide and protect for his family. That, in and of itself, is just becoming so much more difficult, and more difficult than it should be. The rising cost of living, the workforce is harder. It's much more competitive than it's ever been before, and I've been in this situation. I've seen tons of people in the situation where they're jobless or they get laid off and they apply to literally thousands of jobs and they're just not hearing back. I've been there. God, it's a fucking headache. And then look at dating culture too. I mean, I won't get too into that, but it's a nightmare. It's a absolute nightmare. All of this is being thrown at us rapidly, and it's being thrown at us in a time when technology is just progressing at a rate that our brains can't keep up with. In fact, the way things like social media work and the way the internet works, our brains are overloaded right now with information. The human brain is not meant to carry as much information as it is right now. And that's a part of the reason why things like ADHD, for example, are on the rise. At least in my opinion, is people's brains are just being overloaded, overstimulated by so much that's happening online. And so we're dealing with this overload of information while the pressures of the world around us are becoming more intense. Like I said, cost of living, the workforce, everything. And it's just becoming harder and harder to be a normal man in society. So no wonder, that things like anxiety are on the rise. It makes complete sense. And if you're a man and you struggle with it, I get it. I've been there. I still, it comes out of me every now and then. I feel my nervous system acting up. I feel the shaking. It's a lot to take in, being a man in the modern era, especially, because my whole thing is, me personally, what I want out of life is so simple. I just want to do the work that I do, and I want to start a family. That's all I want to do. And that in and of itself is, I can't believe how difficult it is. I really cannot believe how difficult that is. It's just so complicated. That's the best way I can put it. This world has become so complicated, and I think, America and the West, it's just become so complicated that the brain doesn't know how to wrap itself around what's happening around it. So what's the solution? Is there a solution? It often probably feels like there isn't one because there's so many things beyond our control, like the rising cost of living, for example, the way the economy's going. You and I, we don't have any control over that. The way technology is going too. I can't control the fact that AI is taking over and the fact that technology is just progressing at a rate faster than I can keep up with. So with these things, it might often feel like I can't do anything about it. I'm fucked, But I promise you're not fucked. I promise you're not fucked. And I promise that there is a solution. I've found a solution that works very well for me. And that is letting go of what I don't have control over. When you think about anxiety, I am sure a lot of your anxious feelings, a lot of what causes these fears within you are things that you don't have control over. So with that in mind, what can you do? You can let go of what you don't have control over and put your focus on things you do have control over. Now, what does the process of letting go look like? It's something that's difficult because it's not material. I almost can't materialize that feeling of letting go of things I don't have control over. But I've come to it in meditation. I've come to it with just a deliberate effort to change my perception of the world around me. And I've come to it through practicing spirituality, through focusing on my spiritual growth. That's what I'm trying to say, in my relationship with God. the more I allow my brain to let go of things I don't have control over, to let go of things that make me anxious, the more I find I become more interested in things I do have control over. And what do I have control over? I have control over my work ethic, what I can be doing for my career. I have control over my health, what I'm doing to maintain a healthy lifestyle. I have control over my values and my goals in life. Like I said, my goal is to start a family. Even though it's difficult, I can still work towards that. I can still do things in my life to push me towards that goal. And on top of that, I can control over my relationship with God. I can control how much effort I put into my spiritual well-being, how much effort I put into just becoming a solid man of God is the best way to put it. It's a difficult thing to wrap your head around at first, to kind of just accept that there's a lot you don't have control over and a lot of things that are going to continue to make you anxious, but to accept that you are in control of your attitude. You are in control of how you perceive what's around you, and you are in control of letting go of what you don't have control over and focusing more on the things in your life that you can control. I'm telling you, this mental switch changed everything for me. It's what made anxiety bearable. Anxiety for me was extremely unbearable before I let go of what I didn't have control over. I used to get anxious. I used to get so worked up about the world around me. I used to get so worked up about my environment. Excuse me. And now, I'm not saying I necessarily feel any better about it. I'm not saying I'm happy to be living in this economy, but I feel I'm a lot more content with it. I feel a lot more content with the fact that this is just where I am, and I can't do anything about it. It's just how it is. I can just focus on me. I can focus on bettering myself. It's tough. It's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy. It's definitely a process. And I think, I always advocate people take a spiritual path. People start looking into their own spirituality and start claiming that relationship that we all have within us with God. And I feel like if people were to take that path and more people were to look into how God can lead you and provide you with direction and purpose, any problems you have with your mental health will just start to fade, and then everything will start to become more clear. And in using an example of what I was talking about before, I don't like living in the economy I'm living in, but I know I was born, during this time, and my life is happening during this time of human history for a reason. I don't 100% know that reason, but I know there is a reason I was born now rather than 100 years ago or 100 years from now. I know there's a reason. I feel it just right here in my soul, and things like that. It just makes me so much more comfortable with the world around me, my environment. It makes me feel less fearful of what's going on. Anyways, I hope this information helped you. I plan on making more videos about anxiety because of the few mental illnesses that I've struggled with. Anxiety's definitely been the most impactful on me. It's definitely been the biggest struggle in my life and the one I've done the most work at overcoming. So I'm planning on making more videos of anxiety in the coming future. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like some more information about the differences between men and women when it comes to anxiety, I invite you to check out a blog. I've written a blog that goes into a lot more detail about this topic, more so the statistics behind it. And so yeah, if that's something that interests you, I welcome you to check out Bedlamite's website. I'll leave a link to the blog in the description below. Anyways, until the next one.